I'm going to be unboxing this Super Twin and showing you what's inside. It is a rather antique gaming copier for the PC Engine and the Megadrive and maybe other systems that if you might have adapters for them. I think this is a clone of, or became cloned by, the Magic Game Doctor MGD2, which also had a RAM pack and a little tiny LED or LCD screen and various adapters for game systems. So this was a device from around 1990 or 1991 that would let you load games from floppy disk, and it would copy them onto a RAM or a flash ROM or whatever pack, which would then go into a game system. So that's a way of running ROMs on many different systems. This is called the Super Twin, I guess because it was designed for H, meaning Hue card, a Hue system, and M for Megadrive, so PC Engine and Megadrive. To dump games, to dump your own flash games onto this unit or onto floppy disk, you need, I think, a separately sold adapter. So here's the side of the box. The fake Japanese is pretty funny. It's they're obviously trying to make it look like a Japanese unit, but they copied the Japanese text wrong. It doesn't say Super Twin, it says Suru Tsuihi in a bad katakana script. So here's, I guess, PC Engine and Megadrive coexisting in harmony with stars shooting across the sky. And here's a front view of this same harmony. Isn't that nice? And so same thing here. So here's the back of the box. So yeah, let's have a look inside. This is a very interesting unit. It has its own CPU inside, and the fact that it runs off a 6502 just warms my heart. So let's look more into this. Okay, so we have the box for the Super Twin, and let's see what's inside. Well, it says the set includes the HM Drive ST1000, and that's this thing, the main unit, a RAM pack, STR400, an AC-DC adapter, standard Famicom or PC Engine style adapter, and the user manual. So let's do the unboxing. Here's the styrofoam package with the Super Twin inside. Pull it out, it's got a bit of foam here. Another stray bit of foam. And the user manual. It gives you quite a good technical description of how this thing runs. And instead of looking at it on the LCD, it shows you what the 10 or so options are and how to use it. How the RAM pack works, the memory map. So this is a pretty technical way of explaining everything. How to use the directory, format, rename, dumping commands. Well, not dumping, but loading onto the RAM cartridge, and the tech specs of this unit. And it says here it runs on a 65CO2 processor. Awesome. And if they're still around where they are, here's the service center in Hong Kong. So, well, what I have right here are the RAM pack. It just says STR, it doesn't say 4000 or 400 or whatever. And to get this RAM pack working on game systems, you would need the special adapters. All I have are two of them, which is, I don't know, it might be the only two that it was made for. This is for the PC Engine, and this is for the Megadrive. So this would load in games off floppy disk into the RAM pack while it's connected. And then once you finish loading it into the RAM pack, you can disconnect it because it runs on a battery. It's currently a very flat battery, but then the RAM pack slides into one of these adapters. So here's the Megadrive one. It's got a power LED, I suppose, when you turn on the Megadrive. SG Supercard. Notice, don't contact fingers or metal to the terminal part. This may damage the internal integrated circuit. Yeah, okay. That comma is bothering me. So here's the top of the adapter, and it just mates with this RAM pack. So this is how you get a Megadrive ROM onto your Megadrive. And so the same thing with the PC Engine, although much smaller. This is the PC Engine one. It's just joins up all of these pins to these pins, and no dire warnings on the back of this one. Slots in like that, and so this thing goes into the PC Engine. Ta-da! And so let's have a look at the outside of this main unit here. So it's a very pleasing beige. It has discolored a little bit, but not tremendously. It's got these nice. Oh god, it feels like a some kind of medical device, like a pregnancy monitor or something like that. Maybe a baby scale. It's got these fantastic blue buttons. Mode up and down is where you choose the option. If you hit Y, that confirms an option, and then you can scroll up and down using the function buttons. N is no or cancel, and finally this is a reset button. It resets the operating system. The floppy disk is in the front here. This was a hole where there was an actual physical on-off switch, but that kept on poking into various things, so I put the switch back inside there. And here's the back. It looks like your standard thing made by Bung Enterprises, actually. A regular Famicom or PC Engine power plug, or power jack, an upside-down parallel port connector. This is the edge connector for dumping hardware. And this is where the RAM pack fits into. Super Twin HM Drive ST1000. And on the back, it's got, that's where the floppy disk is actually. Oh no, sorry. Those are the heat vents for cooling. Although you could also run it by some 6 AA batteries. And it runs on 9 volts, it does 9 watts, so that's it. Warranty void if removed. Okay. When you buy this, it just comes with a RAM pack, and that's your lot. So how do you actually get it running on game systems? Well, probably separately at the store you'd have to buy the different adapters to get it going, just so that this company would not get sued by Sega or NEC. But in addition to this, there is probably also a separately sold Cartridge Dumper, which is this thing here. It's just an edge connector, rather loosely fits into the back like that. It has a power LED for when it's connected, and this is used for dumping PC Engine games, like this. Yeah. Or Megadrive games, and they face to the front of the unit. Like this. Don't do two at the same time, that's a bit dangerous. But when you have a Megadrive cartridge plugged in, the dumping software on here recognizes that it's Megadrive. And when you have a PC Engine one slotted in here, it recognizes that it's PC Engine. And it, I think it auto-detects the size somehow. So, pretty interesting hardware. All right. So, let's turn this baby on, take a look at the menu, and, well, at least try to get a couple games dumped, okay? Okay, let's test out the Super Twin's functions by applying some power to it through the DC plug. All right. Is that screen visible? Just a little bit. Okay, so here's the main menu with no discs inserted. It says select mode, disk to RAM. That copies from floppy disk to the RAM pack. Disk save. That copies from the disk, I think, to internal save memory. And from save memory to disk. Run a directory of the floppy disk. You can format the disk. You can rename a file, delete a file, go to the utility menu, run a diagnostic, and power off. Let's go back to utility. So you hit yes or Y to run it, and it really doesn't have any utilities at all. It just says the version of the operating system and the clock speed. And that's all. So you run a diagnostic. It says to insert the RAM pack. There we go. Let's try again. So it says there's an error, and if you just run it with the RAM pack plugged in like this, diagnostic, RAM pack check, it tries to write to it. It says how many writes it has tried and then how many successful reads it had. So it encountered an error. Try again. So yeah, the testing of the RAM pack has failed, so I've found that I guess this connector is getting old and faulty, so the only way to get a successful read of the RAM pack is by pulling it out of its shell like this, and just sliding it in directly. So I will try running a diagnostic on this with this plugged in. It's going to take some time, so I will edit the video a bit. So diagnostic, RAM pack check. So now it has written, looks like 100,000 bytes or hex. So it's written to all the RAM, and now it's reading it back. Okay, and it has read all the same number of bytes, so it says the 6264, I guess that's the RAM signifier, is okay. SQ. I don't know what that means, but that's okay too. Alright, so that's a check of the RAM pack, and that's all the diagnostic does. Okay, so let's plug in power to the Super Twin, and I think this is a blank floppy disk. Put that in there, and run a directory of this. No files. So here we're going to plug in the card dumping board into the back of this, and let's try to get it to dump a Megadrive game first of all. Alright, so no files in there. Plug it in. Okay. Okay, so with this plugged in, there's an LED that lights up here when it's when I guess just this thing is plugged in. It's just a power indicator, and so this is the Megadrive slot. It's got the curves. It's got the slanted molding at the back, which kind of feels like it's a Famicom copier, but no, that's the back of the Megadrive. So. Okay, disk RAM, disk save. Okay, so in the regular Super Twin like this, you can format the disk and you can copy ROM files to the RAM pack like this, but there's no facility for actually dumping a game from cartridge. So where is that? Well, software for actually dumping these ROMs is provided as files on a floppy disk, so they have to be run as software on the Super Twin. So I have those copied onto another floppy disk. This one's from Grand and Toy in Canada, provided by Dave Shadoff. Thanks a lot. So this Super Twin loads up its own operating system if it's on the floppy disk, and from that you can run files, so a certain number of programs, like I guess maybe a parallel port connection, and the dumping software. So with those files on this floppy disk, it's now going to load up a different operating system. So you can see here now it's calling itself XDOS version 1.1 from March 1991. Let's get that in frame. Okay. So with this XDOS running, it has a little bit different menu. Disk to RAM, disk save, save to disk, dir instead of directory, so it's got its own format, rename. It's kind of more terse than the actual built-in operating system. Rename, delete, copy, so you can actually copy files. Run, which means run some of the software on this. Power off. So the diagnostic is gone. So we hit enter, yes, for run. And then any files with _x _ extension, that's what you can run. So it says select a file. Disk copy, you can actually copy all the contents of a disk and format it as well, so you can make a duplicate of the same disk onto another floppy disk. iOS, I think that's the name of this actual operating system. Multicopy does some sort of, well, dumping plus making a special file on the floppy disk. I guess it gives you a menu or something if you run it in, well, if you run it on another Super Twin. Shell, I'm not sure what this does. Further investigation needed. STD boot, I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, that's it. So autoload is actually the ROM dumping program. So we hit select, change the disk. I don't think I'll change disk. I'll just save onto this floppy. Yes. Press the key. Okay, and so it recognizes the Megadrive cartridge, and 4 I think means 4 megabits, so it names them MD4, MD2, MD8 for 8 megabits. I'm not sure what it does for a 16 megabit game, but you can actually, with the mode buttons, you can scroll through the different, well, 3 final digits and name it something, whatever. And it's numbers only. It's only numerical, from 0 to 9. Well, if you use the rename function on this Super Twin inside the program, you can actually rename it to something .md or .pce or whatever. Okay, so doesn't matter. I'll just name it 44 and hit yes. File number MD4400, are you sure? Yes, I'll record it. I'll save that so it's reading the Megadrive card. And that's a 4 megabit game, so it's saving it to floppy disk. And it says, okay, do you want to make another copy? Well, I'll say no this time. No, thank you. And then that's finished, so it quits back into XDOS. So let's try copying and dumping a PC Engine file. Okay. Okay, so I'll slot a PC Engine game into here. There's bar N. Make sure that's made some good contact. Now, unfortunately, even on this Super Twin, I don't think there's any way to run a checksum on any of the games either, so it's luck of the draw. Plug it in. There we go. So, well, we have XDOS loaded again, so we go down to Run. And Run Autoload. It says change the disk. Okay. Press a key to start. Okay, so it recognizes there's a PC Engine game in here. It says PC and 2, so it knows it's a 2 megabit card. And then you have to select the file number again. And now this time it's numbered at extension .040. I'm not sure what that is. You can't change the extension, at least in this menu. All right. So you just number the file that you're dumping, and then you can rename it later. Hit yes. Are you sure? So now it says reading PC, so it knows it's PC Engine. And that's okay. No, I don't want to do another copy. Okay, so having dumped a Megadrive game and a PC Engine game onto floppy disk, let's at least check the directory of the floppy disk first. Directory. So here are all the files on the disk. Here's a 128 one that I dumped earlier. I think it's Sokoban World. There's the Megadrive one, which I just dumped, Veritex. And here's the PC Engine Bomberman, which I dumped. And then you can look at the other files on that OS disk. 3K Autoload, disk copy, iOS, shell, standard boot. Well, it just says the size is there. Okay, so, well, let's try copying from the floppy disk to this RAM pack. So hit disk to RAM. It'll probably say select. Okay, I'll select this one, the PC Engine game. Insert RAM pack. All right, I will. So it's loading from the floppy disk now and copying it onto this RAM pack. And it says OK. All right. Let's try a different file. Disk to RAM. Okay, I'll choose the Megadrive one this time. And it says OK again. So in theory, you can pull out this RAM pack now, and with the battery backup of the RAM, you can plug the whole thing into either the PC Engine adapter, like this, and plug that into the PC Engine, or you plug in the Megadrive adapter, this thing, and slot the RAM pack on into there. And then this whole thing goes into the Megadrive. Now, with this thing being as flaky as it is, I'm not going to show on camera any tests of running ROMs on this RAM pack. This is just for historical sake, not to actually get something running. So I think if you owned this device and it was working fine, you might have a couple teething problems getting it working, but you could actually, have a good time loading up and dumping Megadrive and PC Engine ROMs. So I guess back in the day, if you had all the adapters for this Super Twin or the multi-game Doctor 2, you would be living large, having one system that would copy and run a RAM pack on all the different systems like Game Boy and Game Gear and Super Famicom, etc. So that would be pretty awesome. Nowadays, with the RAM packs failing and things corroding, it's not very usable, but it is a very interesting piece of history. And the fact that this is its own self-contained 6502 based computer is pretty awesome too. If you were really into you know, hacking and doing your own programming, you could make your own operating system for this. You wouldn't even need to change the ROM inside. You could just load it up on floppy disk. So yeah, that's the operation of this thing, and as it says, bye for now. Okay, let's take a quick look under the hood at these Griffin and Super Twin copiers, see what makes them tick. So here's the floppy drive for the Magic Griffin, denuded, and just for posterity I'll record what's inside. So it has the standard Panasonic floppy drive, connected via a rather curled up floppy cable to just some kind of parallel adapter. And the power is switched here with a relay, I think. So it's a power and parallel, well, it's a connector adapter board. And next I'll show a little bit of the Magic Griffin. Once the screws come out, it's mostly loose. I mean, this board is upside down, but still there are plastic pegs inside of this connector that I don't want to pull out. They don't have a lot of give. So let's see how much I can show under the hood just by flexing the bottom. So not a whole lot. Inside are RAM chips, piece engine connector. I'll go on the other side. Sorry, not much to see here, I guess. It's got two ASICs in there, or ASICs if you want to say that way. That's the twin joypad connector, and you can see that the joypad connector snakes all the way through the inside of the Griffin to that hacked port, joypad port over there. And that's probably all I can show of this guy. Next we have the inside of the Super Twin. So I have it turned upside down, sort of this way, and this just comes right off, and that's the button board over there, and the display is still attached to the main board. And so here you can see this is the, well, I guess this is just a part of the bus, but it's where the dumping boards go into, and here's a parallel port, I suppose. Power. Alright, some switching ICs. These might be drivers for the LCD. And this can actually be, sorry, my hand's in the way. This can actually be popped right off. Gently. Oh, sorry. There are the driver chips for the LCD. So this is just a standard, I don't know, 20 column by 2 row LCD of the day. Push that down. Here's the BIOS, or the operating system chip. I'm guessing that's RAM. Whole bunch of glue logic. That is the probably the floppy disk controller. And then this whole thing is running off of a Rico 65CO2. So there it is. RP65CO2G. Kind of nice. These chips all have the date codes of 1990 on them. So that's when this was made, probably. That says 91, so earliest, at the very latest, maybe 1991. And that's the RAM cartridge interface. And this thing runs off, I think, a 2 megahertz crystal. Oh, no, sorry, 16 megahertz, but that gets divided down to 2 for the CPU. And then finally, I'll remove this one more. let's see, 2203882 components. Okay, it's just their board and number. And so over here is, well, it's another Panasonic floppy drive, and yeah, a homebrew looking power supply board. So I won't go any farther than that. Yeah, you can see all the battery connections are like that. So kind of professional up here, and then kludgy down here. Yow. Alright, so I hope this was interesting to look at. Just a quick look under the hood of this 65CO2 powered ROM copier.